Nicole sucked a deep breath. Astonished, yet calm, she fearlessly ventured into the depth of the purple eye. There a night sky twinkled with a cosmos of its own. Nicole pulled back, overwhelmed by the force, vacillating between confusion and insight. The sound of trickling water ceased, and a sudden thought of Justin vanished. A seductive beckoning imparted fascination, and she was casual to a tiny tugging at her belly. After a moment the tug intensified. It was pleasurable, intriguing. Nicole did not resist. She smiled at the point of the pull, while soothing melodies bubbled through her mind, and her eyes fluttered to enchanting images. Her essence receded from her physical being, and levitated between craft and whale. Nicole faced her body. "My body. Justin. The boat." Her words had no physical aspect. "I know that touch. The whale." Sublime warmth enveloped her. Nicole's essence turned. "The whale's gone, and the sky's different. Its color. There's no sun. There's no sea." She whirled back to the Christine and faced her body again. "I'm hallucinating. I can't feel my breathing." She paused. "Justin. Justin. Justin?" He didn't respond. The whale's touch intensified. Her thoughts swirled with brilliant images, lavender in color, and throbbing with beguiling sounds. Her fear drained. To one side the Christine sat motionless, looking as if it were embedded in blue glass. To the other side the color was blue-green, without shape, without texture. Suddenly a small fish darted through the plainness. "It's not the sky. It's the sea from below." Nicole somehow entered the whale's being. She saw what the Leviathan saw, the Christine through the right eye, and the sea through the left eye. What started as a murmur unfurled into a soothing musical whisper. Nicole, fascinated, followed. The whale rolled to an even keel, his bulk settling into the sea. "This be the time. This be the place." From below, the sun's rays pierced a glassy canopy and lanced into the deep. The barnacle-clad hull of the Christine hovered in a water sky, ugly and obnoxiously out of place. A small fish darted around the hulk in constant inspection. Nicole, detecting the whale's movement, brimmed with excitement. The whale circled the Christine twice and turned away while sinking deeper. Nicole scanned the silver blue above, whitish blue ahead, and the blue-black below. Light diminished, and vision faded, only to sharpen again. But now it was almost transparent, with only a hint of color. Something large materialized before them, and the whale accelerated. The vast form of one fragmented into a dazzling silver school of tuna that whizzed like bullets. Sing-song sounds dissipated the oceanic scene, and a dream story materialized within Nicole. It appeared as reality. A young child, a little girl, naked, stood in the night before a frozen sea and under a purple sky dense with sparkling stars. Nicole swooped to give her warmth, and their embodiment became one, and only one. Nicole extended her arms, her little girl arms, palms toward a throng of stars that she knew composed the galaxy of Earth's genesis. She had been here before. Stimulated, her palms discerned the galactic focal. Her thumbs pointed inward, their tips touching as were her forefingers. The central stars, thereby framed within the composed triangle, commenced to rotate with gathering velocity about a dark hole. Faster and faster they spun, until they melted into a homogeneous mass of swirling fire. The black hole expanded and consumed the whirling fire. From its center, A golden light streaked toward the girl and divided into two, one red, the other violet. The red struck her left palm, and the violet her right. Her arms pulsated with the intensity of the focused forces. Her finger tendons glowed through her skin, and the energies traveled up her arms, alloyed in her chest, and dropped to boil in her belly. The child grew to the stature of a young woman. The streaking forces of the black hole blinked and were gone. The young woman lowered her arms, and she sang a whale song, a song of farewell. In the purple sky, stars traced the form of a whale that swam deep into the cosmos. The young woman smiled, lowered her head, and eyed the flame at the center of her left palm. The dream ended, its notion vanished, realization for another time. The whale banked to his left and arched downward into the deep blackness. When far below, he stopped and reversed direction, swimming toward the surface with accumulating speed. Ahead, the sapphire sea pulsated with flowers of jelly. A small fish, conspicuous in the watery vastness, darted from the path of the onrushing animal. Near the surface, the whale accelerated, and Nicole, beyond thought, simply absorbed the sight. Pushing upward, the force quivered the surface until it shattered like a slab of glass. With an explosive sound and a burst of blinding light, the whale ascended into the water-free atmosphere to half its length. At the apex of the jump, Nicole noiselessly gasped in the pause before descent. From the high perch, the Christine appeared as a toy on a flat and vast sea. The whale's bulk gathered downward speed, and he acrobatically made a half-twist, shifting the impact to his back. Nicole watched the horizon twirl and groaned with the awareness of falling backward. The sky dropped away, and they struck the water with a sound like the boom of a cannon. However, the sea enveloped them with tenderness. Submerged once again, and the sun gone, the world of blue brightened with millions of tiny bubbles, making their escape back to the world of gas. Nicole whispered, "Magnificent!" Music was the reply. The whale mused. "Been time since leaping." Massive flukes propelled the whale forward with great power. "Pity be, little thing, not a whale." His pleasure was cut short by a familiar sharp pain. His heart muscle tore a bit more, and he ceased movement. After a few quiet moments, he regained his composure and rejoined his guest. He found her apprehensive and perplexed. Nicole inquired, "Is there a problem? Were you hurt?" The whale purred another song that eased her once again. Though in pain, the old one felt jubilant, sure his mission neared realization. The gift was bestowed to the female. Only the involvement of the male remained. With subdued maneuvers and gliding motion, the whale returned to the sailing craft and surfaced at the same place next to the Christine. The old one rolled as before, exposing his eye. Nicole steadied her body a moment before turning her attention to Justin. Nothing had changed. A push moved her across the water and reunited her body and mind. She again gazed at the whale's bulk and his purple eye. Nicole, motionless, her mind muddled by the experience, struggled to affirm her situation. "The whale is before me." She shifted her body. "I'm back." She rubbed her hands together. "It happened." She analyzed no more and smiled. Nicole turned to Justin, and at once his eyes opened and he sat up. He jumped to his feet and eyed Nicole, and then the whale, and back to Nicole. "Nicole, move away." The whale was absolutely still. Is it dead?" He spoke louder. "Nicole, you're too close." Nicole smiled. Justin smiled weakly, shut his eyes tightly for a moment, and opened them again. Nicole, still smiling, extended her right hand. He took a step forward and stopped. "Is that a pearl?" He looked into her eyes. "Where did you get a black pearl?" Nicole ignored him. Justin stepped forward and reached for the jewel. His fingers were only inches away when Nicole's hand twisted. The pearl dropped to the deck and bounced over the side. Justin stared at the plummeting gem. Nicole grabbed his hand and gently pulled him to her side. He looked at her and then into the purple eye. Without pause, and together, they fell into its depth. Nicole delighted as she and her lover departed their bodies and breezed across the waters. "Justin, just go with the magic." Justin called. "Nicole." Her answer was simple. "I'm here." "Am I still sleeping?" He hesitated. "That's it. I'm still sleeping." Justin heard Nicole laugh. "You laugh like you're here." She laughed again. Justin scrutinized the Christine and his and Nicole's form standing on deck. "If you're here, wave your hand." Nicole didn't move, only laughed. Justin whispered, "The whale should be behind me. Not that me, this me." Again Nicole laughed. Justin questioned, "Am I in your dream?" Nicole sighed. "Justin, you and I are now somehow one with the whale. It's not a dream." "If we're in the whale, how do you know what's going on?" Nicole whispered, "My love, this is my second venture of the day. The first was while you slept. Now hush and enjoy." "Hush and enjoy? I've gone crazy, Nicole. I'm crazy." The whale had waited patiently for the male's adjustment, but time was short. He hesitated no longer and rapidly submerged. "She prepared, understands." He felt Justin's surge of fear and rumbled a sound that was his laughter. The sea closed in and the underside of the Christine appeared. Nicole sought to reassure Justin. "It's all true, love. You, me, and the whale now swim below the sea. You're not crazy. Drop your guard. Feel the whale. Hear his song." Her voice, clear, without blemish, resonated in stereo. "Believe all of this. You're not dreaming." Justin muttered, "Clever dream, inside a whale. You gotta love it." "Justin, infinite probabilities. Anything's possible." She paused a long moment. "How or why, I don't know, but I do know that we're here." "Some kind of Pinocchio thing? Is that what you're saying?" Nicole laughed. The whale rumbled. Justin sighed. "Okay, love. I hear your sincerity. Your choice is my choice. As you believe, so I believe." The old one's laughter induced a song of joy, melodious, tranquil, and enchanting. Justin whispered, "As you do, love, so do I." And a dream for Justin materialized. A young Indian boy ran down a stone-covered beach. He gasped for breath, sucking in cold air, seeking greater speed. But the boy's body was clad in animal skins that slowed his rush. Justin felt himself whoosh up behind the youngster. Fear struck his heart as he immersed into the fleeing form and instantly knew the reason for panic. Behind, a huge northern grizzly pursued. The boy had been told not to run. The boy, many, many miles from help, strained toward a small kayak that bobbed in tiny waves near the shore. He had been told to pull it high on the beach. The hood of his coat fell to his back, and he heard the sound of the bear's giant paws stomping into the gravel and the deep huff of its rhythmic breath. The boy knew his life would shortly end. He ceased his run and turned to challenge his fate with a short spear. The bear came to a stone-scattering stop. It was only yards away. Its jowls dripped with saliva, and even though the animal stood on 4 feet, the boy must look up to see its eyes. Its eyes were large, purple, and sparkled like the sun on the sea. With a deep huff, the grizzly blew its breath into the boy's face and rose to its full stature. The animal stood to a height equal to the length of the boy's kayak. Shuddering, the boy rushed the bear and stabbed toward its belly. His eyes widened as the spear evaporated, and his hand buried itself in the bear's body. His fingers groped a huge, hot liver. The boy shut his eyes to a surge of energy that shot up his arm, passed into his chest, and dropped to his belly, where it boiled. The bear showed no pain, and simply took a step backward. The move extracted the boy's bloody hand. A mighty paw swung through the air and struck the boy on the side of his left chest, lifting him high into the air. When the Indian boy's feet touched the ground, he was no longer a boy. He was a young man. He stood naked, and his body steamed in the frigid air. Without fear, he watched the bear run into the sea, dive into the water, and with the mighty spout of a whale's breath, it disappeared. The young man raised his left hand and looked at the bloody palm, where tiny sparks ignited into a tiny flame. The dream ended. The notion vanished. Realization for another time. The chore done, the horizontal movement of the whale ceased, and he turned downward toward the blue-black of the deep. There was time for a bit of fun, and the whale knew the way. Presently the song of the whale became a continuous drone, low in pitch and precise in frequency. The darkness of the deep brightened to gray, and animals materialized in shadowy shades of red. Nicole, it's vision by sound. I think I saw inside that last big fish. The sky is taking us deep, very deep. Briefly, before them, a small roundish object pulsated with a telltale silhouette that indicated a nautilus. They were close to the bottom, and sporadic activity flashed in phosphorescence. The dive leveled off. Moments extended into many minutes. The sights were numerous and confusing for the creatures of the land. Phantoms moved in strange ways, and light flashed in exotic patterns. Presently something enormous rose from the bottom. Something of a shudder pulsed through Justin and Nicole, and the whale instantly changed course and sped away. A giant squid streamed through the abyss, tentacles trailing. The whale pursued. The squid maneuvered. The chase was dazzling to the humans, and ended when the whale arched upward. Nicole's voice resonated with glee. "Jump! Jump!" The old one understood, his joy beyond theirs. This for last. This for eternity. The pressure acting on his tapered body squeezed it upward with phenomenal speed, even to the old one. Exuberant, he ignored the apprehension of the humans. The upward path produced a color change. The glowing gray flashed to a bright blue. The whale's stiffness generated tunnel vision with an aura of color changes at the periphery. The surface appeared as glass, and upon impact a booming thunder was followed by an incredibly loud hiss. Water clung to the colossus and coiled into a breaking circular wave in the seemingly endless rise. Behind, the hole in the sea slammed shut with the sound of a cannon. At the apex of the jump, the whale was free of the sea. Odd, The old one felt it a fitting gesture denoting the departure of his species. With a twist, the sun and sea whirled. The Christine was the only other witness of the spectacular event. The whale's downward flight commenced, and the sea boiled at the point of penetration. The titanic animal gained freight train momentum as it slid back into its domain. After submergence, another cannon shot sounded, and a geyser of great height and beautiful symmetry composed the final salute. Below, the whale arched, sliding to the horizontal. Exhausted, he made no effort to move, and his bulk slowly rose to the surface. His breath was rapid and weak, and his eyes closed with the expectation of the final pain. With his body trembling, he labored toward the Christine and made no effort to submerge. Justin and Nicole were acutely aware of the creature's plight. At the sight of the Christine, the two humans were pushed and skimmed across the waters, quickly merging into their bodies. The old one languished, but found strength enough to sing a song that broke with surges of pain. He expelled his last breath, and with buoyancy lost, commenced his final submergence. Justin and Nicole watched the whale evaporating into the blue, his crippled song lamenting and fading. Their joys diluted. Nicole whispered, "The whale's dead." Justin whispered, "Yeah." His left hand rubbed his forehead. "But I feel no real sadness." They both stepped back and sat on the cockpit bench, back to back, their knees drawn up, Nicole looking to port, and Justin to starboard. Justin sighed. "It really happened." His eyebrows went up. "Didn't it?" Nicole looked across the sea. "Oh, yeah. That was no hallucination. Of that I'm sure." A long time of silence passed. Justin stood up and put his back to the helm. "My mind has never been this clear or calm." He frowned. "But I forgot something. I just know I forgot something." Nicole looked beyond Justin. "I can still see his purple eye, and the sparkle, like stars." "Then you sensed him to be a male?" "Oh, yeah, that's for sure." Justin flexed and stretched his body and made an examination. "My body seems different, feels different." Nicole stood. "Mine too. Not the slightest tick of discomfort. But I've lost some apprehension, concern. No, those aren't the right words." Justin stepped closer to her and stared intensely into her eyes. "Why?" "Why what?" "Why did it happen?" Justin sat down. Nicole thought. "Only the whale could tell us that." She sat next to him. Justin supported his head in his hands, his elbows on his knees. "It really did happen." Nicole jabbed him with her elbow. "Importance? It doesn't have the importance it had." Justin snorted. "What's not important?" "My body. I like it, but it's not me. It's not me at all." Justin stood. "After leaving it," he patted his chest and clapped his hands. "Meat and bone." He smiled. "I know what you mean." Nicole jumped to her feet. "I feel strong, even powerful." Justin held his arms out. "Exuberance. Untroubled." He leaned toward Nicole. "Passionate." She smiled. "Oh, I do love you, Justin." They embraced in a very deep kiss. Nicole smiled, Their eyes locked together. "Wow, that was a kiss of a different color." Justin blinked. "I moved into you, or you moved into me." They separated and sat on the bench. Nicole touched his knee. "I don't think I'm going to dissect it any further." Justin wrinkled his brow. "What?" She extended her arms forward with palms down. "I'm just going to let it lie there and assimilate." Nicole stood and turned to view the sea. "It's not absurd, nor is it impossible." She took a deep breath. "It's needed." Justin turned, his eyes wide. "I didn't say absurd and impossible. I only thought it." Long moments of silence went by. Nicole turned and smiled. "You only thought it?" She faced forward, excitement and panic rumbling through her being. "It's ongoing, Justin. There'll be more." Justin put an arm around her and planted a kiss on her neck. "What's your opinion on the pearl?" "What pearl?" "The pearl you had in your hand when I woke up. The black one." Nicole shook her head. No, there wasn't any pearl. Where would I get a pearl?" Justin released her. "I don't know, but you had one and it fell over the side." Nicole shrugged again. "I guess that part's for you." Justin envisioned the short episode. "And you made 2 trips?" "Yes." Justin went forward and lowered the sails. As the sun lowered to the western horizon, Justin and Nicole sat in quiet contemplation. The Christine, still becalmed on a glassy sea, waited in the fire red of the day's end for a wind to carry it home. Nicole rose, took Justin by the hand, and led him to the cabin aft. Together they undressed, climbed upon their bunk, and slumped into its softness. Nicole pushed her back against Justin's chest. Sleep came quickly. Justin found rest only after an hour of deep thought. With the dawn, the new day, and the new era, the physical world about the sailing craft Christine had changed little. The sea lingered flat and glossy, the air still, warm, and humid with ocean evaporation. Nicole and Justin rose with ravishing hunger, having eaten only one meal in the past 24 hours. Nicole rushed to the galley for a bite of fruit and to start a cooking fire. Justin went aft to prepare the fishing line. Nicole heard the sound of Justin's line and bait hit the water. She popped her head topside. "I remember seeing lots of tuna yesterday." Justin didn't reply. A fish struck the bait, and he laughed as the line whizzed through his hand, forcing him to juggle to prevent any friction burns. He hauled the catch aboard and shouted to Nicole, "Tuna for breakfast." The fish lay on deck, vibrating at high speed. The noise on the fiberglass deck rolled like the beat of a drum. Justin whacked the creature with the club kept on hand for just such occasions. With his sharp blade, 2 slabs of boneless flesh were sliced from the fish's body, the remainder cast into the sea. He cleaned the meat and washed the deck with a bucket of seawater. Nicole, while building a fire, rethought her statement relating to the tuna. She said it in a nonchalant manner. Now she studied the statement. Topside, Justin lumbered through his chore. He picked up the slabs of fish and stared at the sea aft of the Christine. The pearl. The damn pearl. He looked westward. Where in the hell is the wind? He faced the galley hatch. Come topside. No wind today. No need to rush. Nicole frowned. Coming that way. Want a piece of fruit? It's kind of soft. Yeah. The couple talked without reference to the previous day's adventure. They munched their fruit and waited for the stove to heat up. 10 minutes later, Nicole, with fillets in hand, went back below to do the cooking. She returned with 2 plates of food, and they gorged in silence. Justin tossed his plate into the galley and quietly walked to the bow and sat down. Nicole stayed in the cockpit, sitting on the bench. She studied Justin and toyed with a piece of some very old rope that they used to lash the helm. Her mind caught flashes of his thinking. She pulled her thoughts away. Christ, how am I going to handle this? Time drifted by, and occasionally Nicole looked to her love, hoping for a smile, but it never occurred. She grumbled. He gets lost in that abstract thinking. She twirled the rope and watched Justin stare at the sea. I wonder if we can leave our bodies again. Recalling the sensation, she smiled. That was fun. Can't hardly wait to tell the kids. She stopped twirling the rope. Shit, they're not going to believe us. Hallucinations, hot day on a placid sea. Nicole stretched out on the bench and again twirled the rope, this time above her chest, whirling it like the blades of a helicopter, and stared into the blur. The whale rose, that purple eye. She increased the whirl of the rope. I remember the mesmerism, close to deep meditation. Nicole let go the rope. It slapped the bulkhead near the galley hatch and flopped to the deck. A wondrous thought sat her up straight. I'll meditate and contemplate release. She rushed to the cabin aft for a few pillows. Homemade and stuffed with bird feathers, they were very soft. Nicole glowed with the excitement of the adventure. The pillows were strategically placed, and she took a final look at Justin. Nicole reclined on the pillows and settled into a meditative state that was both deep and active. Her mind groped for guidance. Remembering, she focused on her belly and immediately felt a movement. Colors in the violets, reds, and golds flashed and then gave way to a crisp black. A touch of vertigo quivered her mind. The black was a void, and she hovered within. Nicole dismissed her fear, and this provoked the notion that separation was imminent. Partial separation occurred, but the force abated, and Nicole fell back. Relax. No fear. She took a deep breath. Do I really want to do this? The quick answer was yes. Nicole zoomed away from the Christine, the sea a blur beneath her. No. Instantly she stilled and hovered a few feet above the waters. Nicole looked around and giggled. I did it! Nothing was dreamlike. The Christine sat as a speck on the horizon. Oh, Justin, you're going to love this. She bobbed upward and downward and slowly twirled in a tight circle. What now? The sea was flat, and only a few clouds dotted the far eastern horizon. This is a very lonely place. Fear was again creeping in on her. The boat's a long way off. Miles. Nicole sort of reached for the boat and moved with gathering speed. Easy now. Easy. Her speed slowed. That's better. She moved to her right and to the left, and then back toward the boat. What fun! She saw without her body. I'm here, and I'm not here. Her field of vision turned in the direction from which she came. Oh, I like this. She looked up. Okay, up we go. She rose upward at great speed, but soon made an instant stop. She looked down. Wow, I must be 1,000 feet up. She sought to go higher, but nothing happened, so she dove at the sea. The drop was as fast as the rise, and again the stop was instant. only an inch above the sea surface. Her vision was clear. "It's like looking through glass." She looked at the horizon, still only an inch above the surface. "Oh, I've got to do this in a storm." Her thoughts sprang to Justin and the Christine, and in a flash she floated about them. Justin, still at the bow, still in heavy thought. Nicole flew to him. She whirled about him, laughing, trying to catch his attention, and moved to a point next to his ear. "Yo, big boy." Nothing happened. "Huh?" Nicole looked at her body lying on the bench. "Oh, I have to go back." She hesitated. "I don't want to. This is too much fun." Like a child who just learned to ride a bicycle, she deplored the idea of putting it away, even for a moment. She hovered above her body, deliberating. "Oh, shit. How do I get back?" She stared at herself. "My God, what if I can't get back?" A few moments passed. "Calm yourself. Relax. You have to think." The answer, simple desire. Instantaneously her forms merged. Her eyes popped open, and she sat straight up. Ha! She rubbed different parts of her body, feeling very rested, physically strong, and energy charged. "Well, body, you must have enjoyed my departure." She jumped to her feet. "Oh, Justin's gonna love this." She called loudly, "Justin! Justin!" She waved her hands and shouted again, "I've done it! I've flown again!" Justin frowned. He got to his feet and moved aft. "What are you bouncing up and down about?" "I've just left my body and flew out over the ocean and back again. I flew around you, but you couldn't hear me, so I came back to tell you. It's easy. It's great. I'll show you. Come on over here and lie down. You'll love it. I mean, you are going to love it." Like a rubber ball, she moved to the pillows and rearranged them, one for him and one for her. "Here, lie down. Oh, Justin, it's wonderful." She used body movement to explain. "Oh, you can move this way and that way. You can go up and down and all around, but not too high. And your body feels great when you get back." She patted the pillows. "Come on, lie down. Let's go." "Nicole, wait a minute. What in the hell are you talking about?" Nicole saw his confusion. She took a deep breath and started pacing back and forth in the cockpit. A steady stream of words at high speed poured from her mouth. She turned about frequently in the tiny space. Justin stood 4 feet above her on top of the forward cabin. Nicole's moving weight rocked the Christine with increased momentum. Justin's additional height above the water intensified the movement. He bent his knees slightly and extended his arms outward. "Nicole, Nicole, please sit." She stopped amidship. "Sorry." She sat for only a moment. Sitting still, her words continued to flow rapidly. Justin jumped into the cockpit, sat, and listened attentively. Nicole related her adventure again. In silence she examined Justin's eyes, her own sparkling, a smile on her face, and her posture suggested she may be poised for a leap upward. Justin looked at her. "Please, one more time?" "Bullshit. That was the 3rd time." She went to the pillows. "Let me show you." "I know what you said." His eyes darted about. "It's all so sudden." He looked up into the sky, took a few deep breaths, looked at Nicole, grabbed her by the shoulders, and shook her. "You did it? You really did it, you shit! You did it?" Nicole's voice sputtered with the jostling. "Let's do it. Again. Justin, you're giving me a headache." You did it! You did it?" He pushed her into the cockpit seat and hovered over her. "Do it!" Nicole flexed her shoulders, Justin's suddenness catching her a bit off guard. His body seemed to balloon with anticipation. "Right. Like I said, you simply meditate with the thought of separation." Nicole reclined on one of the pillows, her head to port. She motioned Justin to do the same. Quick to respond, he lay with his head to starboard, their legs intertwined. Nicole looked into the sky. "Just get into a meditative mood and think about a separation of the type that you did with the whale." Nicole sank rapidly and soon released. She hovered near her form. "How am I going to know when he's free?" She recalled a rapid flight across the sea. "Oh, I forgot to mention that. I'll stay put and see what happens." Moments proceeded into minutes. Nicole waited. She felt a breeze, though not really a breeze. Nicole laughed. "That's him! I bet he went halfway to China." More minutes passed. Again she felt the breeze. "Oh, that's him again. Shit, I sit here while he fools around." Another breeze passed her. "Justin, damn it!" Nicole couldn't see him, but his presence was strong, similar to having someone standing next to you. You feel them without seeing them. The same as with the whale. "Hello, love." With a bit of anger, Nicole replied, "I've been waiting." As they had done with the whale, they united and cruised away from the Christine. They spent the day engaged in play. If separated, reunion was merely a matter of desire, their spirits finding one another as if magnets. The range to which they could travel had the shape of a dome. They couldn't penetrate the sea, and limits were perceived as an inability to move farther. The hours passed, and with the day near end, Nicole and Justin returned to the Christine. The time spent in the escapade was actually too long. Nicole's body lay awkwardly upon the bench, her right arm and leg dangled above the deck. "Good grief! I'm sure every joint in my body is going to be stiff." Justin hovered near. "Damn, what a mess." Nicole erupted into hysterical laughter. His crotch was drenched with urine. Nicole giggled. "Next time wear a diaper." She gave Justin instructions on rejoining his form, though concentration for her required she control her giggling. Still, she achieved the transference before he did. As predicted, Nicole experienced pain and soreness. Her mouth was cotton dry, and her bladder was ready to burst. She stood, or rather stooped, and shuffled to the side of the Christine with the grace of a 90-year-old arthritic. Nicole chuckled between cries of pain. From a post in the cockpit she undid a battered life jacket and allowed herself to fall over the side. She pattered around listening for sounds of Justin. In short order she heard his curse, and the craft rolled with his movement. He splashed into the sea on the side away from Nicole and swam around the stern, a broad smile on his face. "Hi, Grace." Nicole smiled. "Did you check the back of your trousers, hotshot?" "No problem. I just swam over here to see if you were drowning." "Buzz off, peepee pants." "Peepee pants? It's been a long time since anybody called me that." "They used to call you that?" "Just my sister." They spent considerable time in the water, the exercise pleasant to their overly rested bodies. At sundown, they climbed back aboard the Christine. That night, in celebration, they concocted a meal as lavish as possible. They bedecked themselves with the jewels from the treasure chest. The velvet hung on the bulkhead. The little things of beauty sat on the table, lit by candles. All things around them seemed new and glowed with greater beauty. all colors intensified. Justin turned to Nicole. "I can almost see into things, just a little beyond their edges." Nicole smiled. "Yes, and things that move ooze something like music. It's delicious." She took a deep breath and almost swooned. "I want to get into the sea. Oh, I want to get into the sea." Justin stepped to Nicole and wrapped her in a tight embrace. "The sensation of these hugs. I love moving into you." "Justin, how can we stand all of this? Every sense I have is heightened, yet so smooth and flowing. My energy is there." Justin released his grip and stepped back. "I can still feel you in me. I think it's going to stay there." That night the moon was full and bright, and Nicole and Justin, their appetites sated, left the galley, their minds on love. They paused on deck, and Justin dangled the large crystal in the light of the moon. A rainbow of the night beamed and bubbled, and even cooled as if a rivulet from ice. Justin and Nicole absorbed the spectacle for many moments. Then Justin gathered the jewel and chain into his palm, and with a whip of his arm he flung it into the sea. "A tribute to our whale friend, to mark this place." Nicole beamed. "I know your touch. I've known it a long time." Nicole whispered, "Justin, it's a blue moon night." That night their love was as never before. Their bodily intertwining tumbled into astral mingling. The rapture of the whale allowed the exchange of forms, and they delighted with the knowing of each other's climactic joy. Their bodies drained, they left them behind, and their essences soared into the night. In slow flight, harmonized by the echo of the night's love, they passed just above the sea and arched into the sky, their concentration not on the stars or the moon, but the blackness between them, and such was the night. The next rising of the sun found the Christine bobbing in moderate sea swells. The wind was fresh and from the south. Justin and Nicole had risen together and set the sails quickly. The large boom swung perpendicular to the hull, and the jibs filled like tiny spinnakers. The craft was light of foot and moved with ease to the north. The wind-driven waves swept from the south, catching the sailing craft from the stern, and the Christine surfed smoothly with their passing. The man and the woman aboard found a new freedom and a truer understanding of their body and soul. Their physical selves were less. Their souls were more, and better tuned to the music of the all that is. The gift received from the last Leviathan on the blue planet would pass on to all others in much the same manner that it had been received, being meant for all. The sailing craft moved away from the place of magic, where a whale whispered, the last whale, a being now enchanted by its own new promise. "Justin, when we're near, we could fly off." The end.